Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We bring you stories of faith, love, and devotion. Yeah, just kidding, please help us grow by hitting that like button. Now on to the story. Wife cheated and at a minimum had an EA post-separation. This is a post to let myself know that although it took longer than it should have, I eventually did the correct thing. Quick background, we met and started dating when she was 19 and I was 24. We spent a lot of time together, had a lot of fun and intimacy. After a couple of years, she had feelings for someone else and decided that she wanted to date them. While dating the other person, she still kept in contact with me, and we still did many things together. After about a year she came back to me, and we started dating again. First time I was plan B per second choice / backup plan, although I didn't realize it. After getting back together, intimacy dropped to just about zero, with me feeling I had to beg for even the remotest type of contact. Even though the intimacy was dead, I looked past this because I loved her very much and wanted to be with her and believed she felt the same way. After being together again for a couple of years, I proposed to her, and we got married about a year later. After getting married, the intimacy unfortunately didn't get any better. Except for a few exceptions, intimacy during our marriage occurred only 2 to 3 times a year on average, with a few years of there being no intimacy and just a little contact that I still pretty much begged for. Our levels of desire were totally opposite, with me wanting a lot and her not being interested at all. Maybe true, maybe false. Our marriage was very hilly road, with a few highs, many lows, and many bumps. We did manage to have a couple of beautiful daughters along the way, now young adults, that I love more than anything and will do whatever I need to for them. A few years ago, 25 plus years into the marriage, things really started to fall apart. She was constantly mad at me and started telling me that I should move out. A little while after she started telling me to move out, she informed me, for transparency's sake, that she started talking to an old BF from high school on Facebook, who is married with kids. Although I wasn't very happy to hear this, she explained that it was really nothing because he lived so far away and that their communication was going to end pretty quickly. After she started talking to him more, her comments that I should move out became more common and the arguments over anything became more routine. After one last time of telling me to move out right before Thanksgiving, I had enough, and I went out the next day and got an apartment. I think this caught her off guard as I don't think she really thought I would do it. I found out at this time that they were constantly texting and talking to each other on the phone multiple times a day for hours each day. She tried to hide this fact by getting a new app on her phone so the calls wouldn't show up on the phone bill, and eventually she got so paranoid that I was reading her texts. To hide things altogether, she went on her own phone plan. For the next month I would hear the same lie that she was going to end it with him, and of course she didn't. She continued to talk to me, and a couple of times over the next couple of months we did get intimate, where she did things she never did before. Coincidence? Doubt it. Afterwards I find out that the intimacy we had was right after she had an argument with her AP and they briefly stopped talking. I'm sure now she used the intimacy to keep me around in case things fell through with her AP. She told me that the AP is a religious man who is helping her and trying to help our marriage. So, he is such a religious man that he is having an EA with her, a married woman, which means he is also cheating on his wife. He sent her Christmas and Valentine's gifts which she proudly displayed while claiming that she didn't ask him to send her anything. She said he asked her to send him a provocative picture, which she says she never would do, which I am happy to hear, but who knows if that was just another lie. The request though made me wonder what he sent her to ask for something like that in return. She later said he sent her a dick pic to her. She informs me he also wants to come down and visit her. It was also around this time I got the old "I love you, but I am not in love with you" line from her. She has another argument with the AP. She once again turns her attention to me. She asks for sex, but I just cannot do it. I tell her our relationship isn't like a husband and wife anymore. She states that on paper we are still married, but I do not want to have sex with her. Just thinking about her relationship with the AP and the constant lying turns my stomach at the thought of intimacy with her at this point. She states that there must be something mentally wrong with me to not want sex when it is being offered. No, I'm just tired of being a doormat that is always being used and lied to. After 4 months from the start of her EA, she said she wanted a divorce, which I agreed to since we no longer had a marriage. All during these 4 months she continued with the "it's going to end with him" line, but instead of really ending it with him and reconciling with me, she was repeatedly picking her AP. She also tried to blame me for the affair as I didn't show any affection towards her. Apparently after years and years of me trying for any type of physical contact or intimacy only to be told no had nothing to do with me not even bothering to try anymore. She also was kind enough to tell me that her AP was the only one to have ever helped her. This also stung a little as we had been married over 25 plus years at this point. I just made a quick comment that I never helped you ever, and then walked away. Looking back at things now, I realize that the main reason she wanted the divorce was so she could be with the AP. If I had started reading these subs earlier, I would have realized it earlier, but now after reading them everything became quite clear. One term that clearly describes her actions was monkey branching. Even after we divorced, she still wanted to remain friends, almost like husband and wife and act like a family, just keeping me around. She wanted me to constantly come over to the old house and I was still more than willing to accept this offer because I still did love her, and I got to see my daughters more. Over the next year, besides the "it's going to end with him" line, I was also fed the "I'm not in contact with him" lie. I would occasionally see a text pop up on her phone and could see it was from her AP, but she would continue to lie and say they were not in contact anymore. Since I saw these texts come in, I of course did not believe her, and she knew I didn't believe her. To prove her point, she would ask me if I wanted to see her phone, but I always declined these offers because I knew I couldn't stand the pain of it coming out that she was lying right to my face, even though I knew she was. Besides that, I'm sure she was deleting texts and was probably using a secondary app still, so there would be no texts to see anyway. There was also the trickle-through thing like in all these stories. Even though they lived far apart and would never see each other, so it was safe to be in that relationship, but after some prying she did admit to seeing him one time. I am positive they met up more than once. She said she never video chatted with him or sent pictures to him, that is until she did. She also repeatedly said that they only had a platonic relationship, which based on the texts I saw, if you took a poll, 99.5% of the people responding would say that it was more than platonic. There were mutual admirations of love for each other, pledges of spending the rest of their lives together and flirting/sexual talk. For whatever reason it appears that the relationship started to fizzle a bit with the AP, maybe he wasn't going to get divorced like he said he was. And she turned her attention more towards me again, at least the second time I was plan B per second choice/backup plan, although I realized it now. I, not we, made repeated attempts to reconcile and get back together. Although she said she wanted to because I was a safe choice who she knew was disease-free, her actions never indicated that she really wanted to. According to her, she never really wanted to remain divorced and pictured us getting remarried and living happily ever after. What a load of BS. I started to spend some nights at her place every week at her request, and then she asked me to stay and sleep over at her place almost every night because she needs and wants me there. I ended up staying at her place every night for 3 weeks straight. Although we shared the same bed, we never were intimate, by my choice, even though she wanted to. We did cuddle and have some touching, but that was it. The end came in 2 basic parts. The first part was that while we were lying in bed together and she thought I was sleeping, I saw her texting the AP again. After catching her doing this a few times, I decided that I no longer was going to spend nights at her place anymore. The second part was a couple of weeks later after I moved back to my apartment. We discussed her texting him and I told her I wanted no contact in place with the AP and to block him on everything, which she said she did. After another week or so I asked her if she has been in contact with the AP, which she immediately said no and offered her phone as usual for me to check. This time I said yes and took her phone to look. Not to my surprise, I see a text from him asking her what she's wearing, and her replying, "Is that question for me?" She tried to explain that by the way she responded to his question, it was obvious she was innocent of anything. She couldn't quite grasp that the real issue was she was in contact with him, and he wasn't blocked, so it was just another lie she was feeding me. Since then, we have been cordial, but the frequency of our communications has drastically dropped. She still tries to say she is sorry and that she just made a mistake, which I pointed out as I read on these subs numerous times. A mistake isn't something you do over and over for 2 years, it's a decision. I also told her, also from the subs, that there are consequences to certain decisions that she made, and the end of our relationship is a consequence of her actions. I tell her she is a single woman now and can go back to her AP or anyone else she wants, and she replies, usually while crying, that she doesn't want him or anyone else, she wants me, and she thought we would grow old together. It may have been a little mean, but I threw the "I love you, but not in love with you" back at her, and I could see it hurt her. I felt a little good making her hurt a little, since she had been hurting me for the past 2 years. She used every single cheater's line that every other cheater has tried using. It was funny hearing her saying all of them, as I knew them well from the time I've spent lurking these subs, and I had an immediate response to each one. She's asked me numerous times if we can ever get back together, and I tell her I cannot predict the future, but it will not be any time soon. What I do know is that if she continues to lie to me about the affair and their relationship, I will never be able to trust her. Trust and honesty are essential for me, and it appears she is not willing to provide either. I cannot stop thinking that she would dump me in a minute if the AP said the right thing to her. I also think they are still in communication in some sort of way, although I'm sure she would deny it, but I don't care anymore, I am over her. I also can't help but think that if she cheated with one ex-BF, what would stop her from cheating with one of her other ex-BFs if they showed a little interest, if she hasn't already? During my darkest days all I had were negative thoughts, and I did think of termination at times. I was devastated by what she did to me. I've seen enough of their texts to know that she provided some falsehoods about me to make me look bad, which increased my depression. How could she lie about me? I thought of how many other times she has cheated on me. This thought got magnified after reading in another post where the betrayed husband said that he doubted that after 20+ years of marriage, it was the first time his wife decided to cheat on him. Did she ever love me, or was I just something that was safe and stable that she knew would always be there for her? I was loyal and would do anything for her to try and make her happy, and she used that to her advantage throughout the 30+ years I knew her. After she started talking to AP, she would do things like buy all new clothes, and do things to fix herself all up, and she said she was doing it for me, which was an obvious blatant lie, since she never wore any of the clothes while we spent time together, and her AP was the one she was in love with. It was just another stab of the knife into my heart. The thought that hurt the most and that would make me depressed for days at a time was wondering if my daughters are really mine. If they weren't my biological daughters, I would still love them like they were, but that ultimate betrayal of raising them for 20 years and she knew they weren't mine might have been the thing that would have pushed me over the edge back then. I have no intention of ever doing a DNA test, because I would not want my daughters to be as hurt as I was when she cheated on me. I am over that constant dark thoughts now, and when they do come up, I can usually quickly dismiss them from my thoughts, although a song or story will sometimes trigger things at times that aren't easily dismissed. Looking at the last 2 years, both pre-divorce and post-divorce, even when we were trying to reconcile, there was a monthly pattern. I would ask if she was still communicating with AP, and she would either lie and say no, or she would say yes but that it will lead to nothing because he lives so far away, or that it would end soon. I would tell her I wasn't happy, but I am not going to tell her who she can and cannot talk to. She must decide what is most important to her. Big mistake on my part. Every month her decision was the AP over me, but I stayed around hoping she would eventually want me again. I used a lot of what I learned on these subs while lurking to help me through things, and it really helped me express myself to her and deal with the entire process. Although I only found these subs halfway through my ordeal, I don't know where I would be without them. I am an introvert, really a loner, and really have none to talk to, especially since the one person I should be able to talk to is no longer a viable option. As they say, time heals all pain, and as time goes by, I think about her and the ordeal less and less. Thank you, Reddit family, for helping me and all the other unfortunate people that find their way here and need the help to get by. Being able to bounce thoughts, fears, and uncertainty of infidelity to strangers is a lifeline that is priceless. We hope that by sharing these stories with interested folks like you, we can help people recognize the signs of a relationship in trouble, and avoid so many of these heartbreaking situations yourselves. Have a good day or night, wherever you are.